Good morning. We are going to do the last lesson of Thunder Rose this morning. So we remember that when we close a book, our thinking is not over. So the last thing that we're going to talk about is the author's message or the central message of the story Thunder Rose. So when we're thinking about the author's message or the central message, we're going to want to think about why the author wrote this book. Authors don't just write books for the fun of it. They usually write books to send us a message, something that we can better our lives with. So what does the author want me to know from reading the book Thunder Rose? The author wants us to figure out the message through the character's actions and reactions to problems and struggles. What changes did the character make? Remember when we talked through Rumpelstiltskin, we said that the author doesn't tell us the messages. They usually put it in the story through the character. So we have to follow the character's actions and reactions. And we have to figure out how that character changes. Or did they even change? Did they learn a lesson? Remember the things that we talked about before and how we determine the author's message. We have to know what is the problem. We have to know the motivation. If we don't know the motivation and the problem, we're not going to figure out the central message. That's why those parts are important. That's why I brought you through those parts in the previous lessons. We also have to figure out what the character does about the problem. How do they solve it? And we talked about how Thunder Rose solved her problems. What does the character learn? What does the author want us to learn? What are some actions or reactions from the character that was similar? Remember, that's another question we asked in Rumpelstiltskin. What was similar about the ways that the characters solved their problem? And what did the character learn? Okay, let's go through this story. In the beginning, we figured out the motivation of Thunder Rose. Remember that little saying in the book, there's music ringing so sweetly in my ears, the newborn exclaimed. It's giving me a fortunate feeling rumbling deep in the pit of me. I'll register it here at the bullseye set in the center of my heart and see what I can do with it one day. Remember her parents always sung her a beautiful, sweet lullaby, and she captured that lullaby and she put it in her heart. She said, I want to see what I can do with this song one day. So that was Rose's motivation. In the middle, what does she do in the middle of the story? Well, she solves problems by doing good with her superhuman strength. Remember, she can bend that iron. And she can vault over those steer. Remember, she caught, Tater, by the horns, and she twisted him to the ground. And then she sang to him, and she calmed him down. Remember, she caught those thieves with that iron. She tied them up with iron. That's superhuman strength, almost like Superman. Then she made barbed wire for the baby by twisting iron. She tries to force the clouds to bring rain for the thirsty steer, but that plan didn't work. So I see a similarity in all these things that she tried to do. When the author says she has a sweet disposition, she's sweet, she's good on the inside. When she does things, she wants to do them for the good of others. So Tater and the steer were about to knock down the door of her house. She wanted to stop him. That's doing good. That's positive. She caught those thieves and brought them to the sheriff. That's doing good. She kept the baby company, made him some barbed wire. That's doing good. And she wanted to bring rain for the thirsty steer. That's very positive and doing good things. So I'm seeing something similar. She's doing good for people and animals. But she's doing them with her superhuman strength, her outside strength, her muscles. Now, the last thing she tried to do was bring the clouds, to make the clouds bring rain. But it didn't work. Remember, she lassoed them and she started to squeeze them, but they only got mad. And the storm got angry and the winds and the tornadoes came at her. So at the end, how did she solve that problem when those tornadoes and that wind came they were on a rampage towards her. They were about to knock her over. So instead of getting any angrier with her strength, remember she bolted out a song so sweet and clear. Let's see if I can pull this up. And then it says, those tornadoes were calmed by her song. They stopped their churning masses and raged no more. And gentle as a baby's bath, a soft, drenching, and soaking rain fell, bringing forth the music that was there. She had even touched the hearts of the clouds. So let's look down here. Let's bring this back up. So it says, let's see if I can move this out the way. Nope. Hang on. Let's go back again. Down at the bottom it says, let's see, come, join me, winds. She opened her arms wide as if to embrace the torrent. She opened her mouth as if she were planning to take a good long drink. But from deep inside her, she heard a melody so real and sweet and true. And when she lifted her heart, she unleashed her song of thunder. It was a sight to see. Rose making thunder and lightning rise and fall to the ground at her command. At the sound of her song, oh, how her voice rang out so clear and real and true. It rang from the mountaintops. It filled up the valleys. It flowed like a healing song. Now, what did Rose learn from that? Remember, she was trying to force the clouds to bring rain with her superhuman strength, but that didn't work. So she turned to something on the inside of her, an inner strength that she had in her heart. It was her confidence, her will to do good. That's what she turned to. So it says, when she used what was inside of her, the song in her heart, to calm the storm, it stopped and started to rain. So the lesson we can learn, the central message, or what the author wants us to know, is sometimes what's on the inside of your heart is just as important as how strong you are on the outside. So that means what's on the inside is just as important as how strong you are. You can be strong enough to flip over a mountain or pick up a big, huge bull, but if you don't have goodness on the inside of you, then that doesn't even really matter. So it's what's important on the inside, just as important as what's on the outside. So let's take a look at how we're going to put this central message together. I'm going to start it for you so you can come back to this video to get your story. So the central message of Thunder Rose is sometimes what's on the inside of your heart is just as important as how strong you are on the outside. In the beginning of the story, Rose's Ma and Pa loved her so much, they always sang a sweet lullaby. It was music to her ears, and she stored it right in the center of her heart. All right, I want you to look at this central message from the story that we read in class, The Fantastic Flying Books. So the central message we remember how we just started this. The central message of the Fantastic Flying Books is that reading books can bring joy and connect people. Do you see how we stated the central message right at the top? And then we talked about the beginning of the story. At the beginning of the story, Morris was devastated because his home and books were destroyed by the storm. Morris then meets a flying lady, and a flying book leads him to an extraordinary library. Morris starts reading again when he finds the room full of books. This shows the central message because Morris is joyful again after he starts reading again. Then, this is the middle, then Morris sharing his books with the gray Morris begins sharing his books with the gray-colored townspeople. In the pictures, you can see the townspeople turn colorful after they receive the books. This shows the central message because the townspeople are connecting with each other and enjoying reading. At the end of the story, a little girl who was great found Morris's finished story. She began to enjoy reading the story and also turned colorful. This shows the central message because she found happiness in reading a story. In conclusion, the central message that is revealed in the story is that reading books can bring bliss to all people. And bliss, of course, is happiness. All right, so I'm going back to this slide. Central message of Thunder Rose is sometimes what's on the inside of your heart is just as important as how strong you are on the outside. So this is going to be your very first sentence. And then you're going to talk about the beginning of the story. I started it for you. At the beginning of the story, Rose's mom and pa loved her so much they always sang a sweet lullaby to Rose. It was music to her ears, and she stored it right in the center of her heart. And you can say, this shows the central message because Rose is keeping goodness in her heart. Then you're going to go to the middle. In the middle of the story, what did Rose do? She tried to solve problems by using her outer strength. And then at the end of the story, what did she do? How did she make those clouds bring rain? She used what was on the inside of her. So use your strong motto as you write the central message of the book, Thunder Rose. Okay, so on your Google form, I'm going to leave a strong motto for you. Make sure you use that. Make sure you don't write just one or two sentences. So this is multiple paragraphs. This is going to be at least 3 paragraphs, a beginning sentence and a concluding sentence. Okay, so make sure you use the strong motto right here to write the central message for Thunder Rose. Thanks.